video on, we'll try to go as quickly as possible, but it's very difficult to talk to a screen. Okay.
Okay,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
ma'am, and from Democracy Watch, Mr. Paco Pangalangan, Democracy Watch, please.
Hi, sorry, I just joined. Good morning, Senator Marcos, and to
Thank you.
fellow.
Thank you. Okay.
Meron po bang hindi po natawag? Kindly state your institution and your name, please.
Hello, good morning po. Paul Michael Hernandez, UP College of Public Health.
Yes, Dr. Paul Hernandez. Good morning po.
Nasaan, please?
Good morning, ma'am.
Okay. City College. Kayo ba yun?
Dr. Roda Goco from the Philippine Medical Association.
Okay, thanks. All right, that's good. We're grateful for your presence. Thank you very much for all those who are here this morning. As you know, we seek to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation so that the necessary laws can be filed and hopefully passed in the soonest possible time in order for the orderly conduct of elections in May of 2022. There is no desire to postpone the elections. The president has manifested time and again his desire that elections proceed as stated in the Constitution. And with that, we would like to make every effort to COVID-proof our elections. We know that many elections throughout the world have been canceled, in certain cases postponed, but in many cases also successfully undertaken. So I think we have a smaller provincial example of that with the conduct of the Palawan election in March, which I am led to believe involved upwards of 60% of the voters. And given the difficulty of the terrain and preparation, I think the Comelec should be roundly congratulated. However, we also note that in the Palawan election, there was at least a 17% increase in the budget of 22 million in a single province. So we are assuming the same level of financial support. Additional financial support will be needed from the budget of the government. I'm also querying the continued registration. I think we're already at almost 60 million. That's still short of the 2 million in 29 of the 62 million in 2019, and far from the 65 million that we had anticipated 2022 pre-COVID. So we'll have to discuss that as well. And I personally am open to the possibility of online registration for the marginalized and more problematic sectors, at least for registration, although there's a violent reaction to online voting or mail-in voting. Lastly, I think we need to deal with the problem of overseas votes. As we know, the turnout has been miserable. Although 1.8 million in 2019 registered, just a little over 300,000 actually voted. So that continues to be a miserable setup. And to date, I think we're only at 1.3 million registered for OFWs. The complication of the repatriated over OFWs who are here in the Philippines and those who may be deployed between now and May, and the complication of the registry as well as their voting precinct. So if my fellow senators, Senator Tolentino or Senator Villar would like to make some statements previous to our resource persons.
I will just listen, Senator Amy.
Thank you. Senator Tolentino, please.
I will also prefer to listen, but I would like to be educated more as to the ability of the Comelec to enable our seafarers to vote. And number two, I would want to be I would want to have some confirmation because part of the title of the resolution is about the Bangsamoro. Substantial information coming from Comelec, confirm, validate, authenticate whether they can conduct an election this coming May 2022 in the absence of a Bangsamoro electoral code. Yun lamang po, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Tolentino and Senator Villar. With that, we call on the Comelec. I'm aware that you've conducted the Palawan plebiscite, and perhaps you can update us on that, as well as the task force that's undertaken to study the preparations for 2022. Is someone from the Comelec ready to answer both my queries as well as Senator Tolentino's? Yes, the Comelec representatives, please. Secretary.
Anyone from Comelec, please?
Wala bang taga-Comelec dyan? Paano tayo mag-hearing? Walang Comelec?
Director
Diba?
Esther Rojas, Director Alarcon.
Yes, I thought Director Elnas was around.
Your
Sir
honors. Good morning,
Rodriguez.
Senator.
Sorry.
Good morning, everyone. Director Pistong will be the one po to present.
Director who? I'm sorry, I can't
Director
see you.
Elnas will be the one.
Kung pwede lang yung
Director
video.
Elnas will be the
Ayun.
one to present the result of the plebiscite.
Okay, no, we know the result of the plebiscite. We just like to know if there were any takeaways or lessons learned regarding COVID in an election. Andiyan ba siya? Director Elnas, please. Director Esther, wala yata. Ikaw lang yata yung Comelec na narito. Committee Secretary, wala ba si Director
I am
Elnas?
trying to call her.
Or Attorney Rodriguez? It appears that they're actually here. Well, they've logged in, but where are they?
Ma'am, nawawala po si Attorney Albert. Medyo mahina daw po ang signal sa residence nila, ma'am. Director Alarcon is also logged in. But
Mahina.
mukhang mahina rin po ang signal because there's
Anong gagawin
an
natin?
icon.
Madam Senator, actually,
Sorry.
Director Elnas is trying to log in.
Okay,
Director
while we're
Elnas is trying to log in.
Yeah, while we're waiting, why don't we consult the DOH? I think at the end of the day, the DOH and the doctors are going to tell us exactly what to do. So I think the India experience was a dismal one, and we don't want to endure that here in the Philippines. Clearly, the earlier notion that you get infections from sick people or from nearby coughing people or infected objects is no longer the truth. And during the India campaigns, it became very, very clear that super spreaders were in fact very crowded places that were enclosed. Is that correct? From the DOH, please. Or any doctor?
Ma'am, Director Elnas already logged in, ma'am.
Yes, but let's start on the DOH. Can we start with the DOH? After all, you will be the ones dictating terms, essentially. Is there anything we can learn from India, for example? Because clearly things have changed. It's airborne. Hence, despite the delay in WHO's recognizing that fact, many meetings were conducted in India in enclosed, non-ventilated spaces. So would our usual precincts in the school buildings not suffice as a result? Is there someone from the DOH or a doctor, please? Kanina maraming doctor. Dr.
DOH,
Serrano, Doctor, parang ang daming doktor kanina, di ba?
DOH, Philippine Medical Association, or
Yeah, Dr.
UP
Abdel
College of
Kawi,
Public
Dr.
Health.
Gatchalian, Dr. Camacho. Can you just tell us what health protocols need to be observed differently, as it were, from what we used to do before?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. So this is Dr. Abdel Kawi from the Disease Prevention and Control Bureau.
Are you
don't know
in
if you were-
DOH? I'm sorry, I'm not familiar.
Yes, Disease Prevention and Control Bureau of the Philippine Department of Health. I think we
Philippine
were able
Department
to
of what?
Department of Health.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I think we were able to submit our position paper for all the details that we want to suggest in the conduct of our elections.
I'm sorry,
However,
Committee Secretary and Doctor, I am not in receipt, and I doubt if the senators are either.
Okay.
Can you
So,
just give us the opinion points very briefly?
yes. So, I can share it here in the screen. So, so this is our suggestion. However, the principles are the same. To maintain the minimum public health standards so that we can prevent the transmission of.
Pwede ba ikwento na lang po kasi wala tayong time
Yes,
statistikin yung
So-
ating presentation. Di naman siya PowerPoint eh.
Yes.
If you could can you just tell us na lang briefly because I'm not inclined to stop and read all of that.
Yes, but the principles stay the same to adhere to the minimum public health standards, which is safe distancing of at least 2 meters.
Okay.
If distancing cannot be ensured, the physical barriers so that we can prevent.
Considering that it's airborne.
However, what we also have to consider would be the ventilation in the area. So that is one way of mitigating that po. The main route is still droplet. It is still droplet. So hence the face masks, the face shield, disinfection of the common surfaces that will be touched. Another is for the health protocols prior to reaching the polling station, such as our contact tracing activities, our health declaration form. Symptomatic individuals are discouraged from attending this election in terms of physical gathering. So we have to think of alternatives to the voting process. Another suggestion.
We've discussed the possibility of special polling places in quarantine, isolation, and even hospitals.
Okay. So that is one measure wherein we can also we can also manage crowd control, ventilation. This would be a challenge for enclosed areas. There is an
Why the average, I'm sure you voted before, would the average school building suffice or would that not be adequately ventilated? Yung mga luma yata na maraming jalousies, okay. Yung mga bago, enclosed.
Yes, I think if we open windows, yung mga natural ventilation, that would be highly recommended po. And also we can
Health workers, what sort of health workers would you need on site?
I think given that we don't expect naman na this would be any different from before na in case lang siguro may himatayin, sobrang init or that we can have yung BHERTs natin there. They are well equipped to attend to yung mga ganong needs. They can easily transport those who may become symptomatic po. Because it is the most at risk that we have to watch out for in this activity.
Yes. What this committee is encouraging, and that is in the early voting bill, is as many as there are groups who are high risk or vulnerable should vote early. Yun nga lang, marami sa kanila ayaw mag-vote early dahil hindi makakaboto ng lokal. Puro national positions lamang. Pagkatapos, yung APP, palibasan, nahihirapan ang Comelec at pati ang mga LGU mag-set up ng APP, gawin na nating dating EAP, which is on the day of voting, there's a makeshift area, siguro gandahan natin na ng konti. And ayon sa sinasabi ni Dr. Abdelkawi, gawin na natin dun sa stadium, town hall, or some other better ventilated area. Tama ba yun? Yes, Dr. Abdelkawi, are you telling us only the BHERTz is necessary? To check lang that the health protocols are being observed, di ba?
Yes po. Pwede pa rin naman like before yung may mga naka-standby na emergency medical services team just in case someone faints or something happens. Pwede naman po yun.
Yes, but nothing special in relation to COVID.
No, because I think what we have to address in terms of ganito is how we can isolate those who are symptomatic. Just in case someone...
Doctor, you're talking about disinfecting, non-crowding. Who's going to monitor that?
That would be the local health department po.
Well, that's what I mean. These are the health workers we need. Who's going to make sure that the protocols are observed? The other thing is who's going to do the cleaning. In many cases, in LGUs that are far-flung and very small, they simply don't have the equipment. What equipment are you prescribing at the DOH?
Okay. So, for hand hygiene, it would be the 70% isopropyl alcohol. If in terms of the surfaces, sodium hypochlorite or other disinfectants that would be for surfaces, yun po yung recommended po sana natin.
For surfaces. The other query would be what occurred in the French election, and that is they dissuaded voters from sharing equipment. So kanya-kanyang dala ng ballpen at saka lapis para hindi na mag-share. Is that something that you are encouraging as well?
Yes po, it's part of our recommendation. All common items should, as much as possible, i-avoid po natin yung sharing of items.
Okay, all right. So how many do you recommend? Basta 2 meters ang physical distancing. Yun ang
Yes po.
recommend.
And the ventilation po. We have to ensure the ventilation.
How much ventilation is adequate? I mean, obviously in old buildings, there's some level of cross ventilation. Kailangan pa ba ng fans and so on and other more complicated setups?
There is this issuance from DOLE for the workplaces. It could be applicable in this case, pero medyo if you really want to be tedious, yung CO2 monitor. So aside from, because natural ventilation, just by opening the windows and the doors, okay na po yun eh, and the 2 meters. But if you really want to monitor the CO2 of all the participants in a certain area, there is the CO2 monitor that is installed in closed areas. Yes po. So that's one alternative.
I doubt that there are very many of those, but you're saying just open windows.
Yes.
Okay. Is that all, Doctor?
Mainly yun po. Yun yung mga salient points po.
Thank you very much.
Details are in the document. Yes. Thank you
very much.
Thank you
Yes,
for inviting us.
we'll look at that very carefully. Is there anyone else from the health sector who'd like to bolt in and add more features that we need to observe?
Ma'am.
Yes,
Madam
yes.
Chair.
Yes,
Madam
Senator
Chair.
Tolentino, please.
Is it now the correct impression that the recommendation coming from the previous resource person is that Comelec should deputize DOH or local government, including private physicians and nurses. Is it a recommendation that is viable now, Madam Chair, coming from the comments of the first resource person, that we should now mobilize all health workers for the 2022 elections, and they should be deputized by the Commission on Elections?
Dr. Abdel Kawi, is that the impression? Is that the correct impression from what you told us? Sinabi mo kasi yung BHERTs are equipped. Among the BHERTs are volunteers, BHW, who don't necessarily comply, who don't necessarily count as government employees under the civil service, at yung iba pang private organizations na sinasabi ni Senator Tol. Kailangan ba i-deputize ng Comelec yan para nandun sila sa polling place?
That could be one option if we need to address the manpower shortage in certain areas. Perhaps that could be applicable, especially in our GIDA areas if there's a limited number of health workers. So I think it would vary by local government unit.
Okay. Perhaps since Director Elnas is apparently here and Attorney Rodriguez from Comelec, is that something that we can do without
Ma'am,
overcrowding the precinct?
yes, ma'am. Good morning, Madam Senator, and good morning, Senator Tolentino, and good morning, everybody. Beforehand, ma'am, I would like to share, if the chair would allow, our experience during the Palawan plebiscite, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we requested that you run through that because that's our best information on what could occur in an election during the time of COVID. Yes,
Thank
go
you.
ahead, Director Elnas.
Thank you,
please.
ma'am. So starting from campaign period, doon na natin ini-expect na natin na magkumpul-kumpulan, etc. So we see to it that there will be no violation as far as the IATF rules and regulation is concerned. So that's why considering na hindi lahat ng areas mayroong internet connectivity, mayroong Facebook, etc. for them to avail of the basic information as far as the plebiscite is concerned, andun pa rin yung pulong-pulong natin. We're in face-to-face encounter with the voters as well as the proponent or the yes would do the campaign, and of course yung sa Comelec. But
Pero Director Elnas, there have been some alarming announcements from the Comelec saying that all face-to-face campaigning would be prohibited by Comelec. Siyempre, hindi naman pwede yun.
Yes, ma'am. That's why sa Palawan template natin, we have to do something for areas na walang internet connectivity. So pag barangay, pulong-pulong sa barangay yung election officer natin or yung proponent or yung kontra, so we required that the area 50% lang ang pupunta sa area, whether covered court, basketball court, or
What do you
gym.
mean by 50%, Director Elnas? Hindi ba dapat yung LGU, kasi iba-iba naman ang status ng LGU, yung iba 40 people, yung iba 100. So, susundan na lang natin yung hatol ng LGU, ganun ba?
Yes, ma'am. So,
kasi 50% is not very helpful. Hindi natin alam. Yung iba, yung 50% nila, putok na putok pa rin.
Yes, ma'am. So, ang isa pang instruction ng election officer is that yung basic social distancing required by IATF is complied, is a mandatory.
2 meters na sinasabi ni Doktora?
Yes, ma'am. That would be ma'am, more effective than yung usual natin na 1 meter social distancing. And aside from that, during the conduct of pulong-pulong, mandatory yung pag-wear ng face mask at saka face shield. At saka mayroong sanitation station. Bago papasok, mayroon ng sanitation station. Dadaan sila sa sanitation station and do the, before they can do the info campaign. Then
Sino
next,
naglagay ng sanitation station, extra face mask and shield? Sino
yung
naglagay?
barangay mismo, ma'am, ang
So
nag-install.
walang gastos doon yung Comelec?
Wala, ma'am, because basically, yung plebiscito, ma'am, is shouldered by the local government unit.
Tama.
Yes, ma'am. So, after that, yung sa ano natin, sa campaign, yun yung nagiging template natin. Then, isang ano natin is yung distribution and verification ng sa treasurer's office. Kasi yung experience natin, pag mag-verify, kukuha ng mga ballots, paraphernalia ang mga teachers natin, nagkukumpul-kumpulan yan before. So ngayon,
That's right.
we see to it that only one ang pupunta, one representative from the electoral board para pupunta mag-check and get the official ballots and documents. Then on election day, we made it mandatory that sa lahat ng mga voting centers kung saan nandun yung mga classrooms, mayroong health officials na nandun. It is
Sa
composed of
loob, sa
either
labas lang.
doon sa entrance mismo, ma'am, andun
Yes.
naka-station yung either personnel ng municipal health office or barangay health officer. So doon sila naka-station, bago papasok yung botante, check na yung temperature niya. So mandatory 'yon. So once makita ng ano sa rules namin, once makita yung mayroong 37 point something above, dadalhin siya sa isolation polling place. Doon mayroong naka-assign din ng electoral board who will conduct the voting, no? Facilitate the voting so that kahit mayroon siyang lagnat, makakaboto pa rin siya, but of course with the more stringent requirements. Then aside from that, mayroon tayong isolation polling places sa bawat polling place.
Ito
Ini-emphasize
yung tinatawag
natin.
nating EAP dati, ano?
Hindi po, ma'am. Iba ito, ma'am. Ito yung ma'am, isolation polling place intended solely for voters na nagkakaroon ng temperature higher than 37
So,
point
ito pa
something.
to sa priority lane ng seniors, PWD,
Yes, ma'am. Iba ito, ma'am. Iba ito, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So, mayroong nakalagay doon sa doon sa voting center mismo, mayroong dinesignate tayo ng COVID marshal who is the DepEd highest official within the school campus. Siya yung mag-maintain ng no crowding, walang magkumpol-kumpol, walang pagala-gala ng mga botante. Of course, with the help of the PNP and AFP para ma-maintain yung walang crowding, ma-maintain yung social distancing.
Paano yung tinatanong ni Senator Tolentino, magde-deputize kayo ng DOH o hindi na
Yes.
kailangan kasi nasa labas lang sila?
Yes, ma'am. Every elections, just like what we did sa 2016 and 2019, we deputized the Department of Health, and yung time na yun wala pang COVID, but we set up and established health center, emergency health center doon sa voting center mismo. That time,
Okay.
pero this time, i-enhance pa natin yan to the point na talagang pagpasok pa lang, andun na yung mga health officials to check and verify the condition of the voters.
Di ba naging magulo sa Palawan? Parang ang dami-daming tao sa loob ng presinto.
Hindi
May
naman, ma'am.
DOH, may police, may
Ah,
DepEd, may Comelec. Karambola ba yun?
Hindi naman karambola, ma'am, because sa layout natin, ma'am, nakadagay kung saan sila pupwesto. So, organize yung na alam nila kung saan sila pupwesto, the police, the health officials, at saka mayroon din tayong nilagay, ma'am, na voters assistance desk. Ito yung mga election natin, citizens arm natin, yung PPCRB at saka NAMPREL, they will assist voters, turuan kung ano yung presinto niya, at saka mayroong layout para hindi siya pagala-gala, ituturo kagad kung saang room siya. Saka hindi na sila titingin doon sa labas ng room, doon sa listahan para hahanapin yung pangalan nila. So mayroon tayong nilagay na ganun to assist voters. Then doon sa ma'am, doon sa loob mismo ng polling place, doon sa classroom, mayroong mandatory na sanitation station. Bago papasok yung botante, bago papasok yung electoral board, nakalagay na doon ang alcohol, mayroon pang ibang washing areas para maghugas, mag-sanitize ng kamay. Bago pagpasok ng botante, i-issuehan siya ng gloves at saka mandatory na naka-face mask siya.
Yung
Ah,
gloves, so may gloves pa yung botante?
Yes, ma'am. Kasama yon sa allocation ng COVID supplies natin, ma'am. Tapos with the instruction na as much as possible, voters should bring their own ball pens para hindi na maghiriman, magkahawaan. Aside from that, ma'am, yung mga teachers natin, nakaseparate yan through plastic barriers na sinet up and install days before the plebiscite. So walang contact in a way yung between voters and electoral board.
Paano yung ink kung may naka-gloves yung botante?
Tinatanggal, ma'am, tapos nilagay patakan lang, tapos tapon na yung that will be before leaving the ma'am, before leaving the polling place. Yes, ma'am. So yun, tapos yung mga voting booth natin, mayroon ding nakaharang na mga plastic barriers to the point na yung kabilang botante hindi siya makakapag-contact sa ibang botante. So naka-install yan bago pa ang plebisito, ma'am. And it's the local government unit that provided and set up those barriers, physical barriers, to ensure
But this time it will have to be Comelec.
Yes, ma'am, yun ang tinitingnan ngayon, ma'am. It needs budgetary requirements, especially nationwide ito. And isa pang dilemma namin dito, ma'am, is that unlike sa Palawan plebiscite, we only allow 5 voters at a given time na papasok at boboto. Pagkatapos ng 5, alis, pasok yung 5. So, this time, mayroon kaming dyan, medyo problema dahil with the national and local elections and the limited number of BCMs available na gagamitin, so mapipilitan kami na babalik kami sa 1,000 voters per clustered precincts. Nung sa Palawan plebiscite, it's only 200 maximum per clustered precincts. So again, it will entail budgetary requirements if in case. At saka medyo huli na dahil yung BCM, nag-start na yung refurbish at saka yung pera, tama lang sa refurbishment for the BCMs.
I think
But
Senator
anyway,
Villar is raising her hand. Senator Villar, please.
Senator Amy, tatanong ko lang, yung sinasabi mo na you can, yung mga, ano tawag dito, mga senior citizen at saka people with comorbidity, mauuna silang bumoto. That's a day before or several days before? Ano ang suggestion doon? And
Meron kasi ngayon at ngayon we have something called the APP na pwede silang mag-vote sa ibang lugar. Pero yung sinasuggest namin na early voting na within 30 days or maximum 2 days before the election makaboto na sila. So that's why that's the bill that I was pushing for plenary.
you said ayaw nila dahil they cannot vote for local government officials. Why?
Kasi before the day of the elections, we can't break the treasurer's seal and open up all the printed ballot. So yung bibigay sa kanila yung blank ballot tapos susulatin lang nila yun. Di ba ganun yun, Director Elnas?
Hindi ba pwede rin naman pabotohin sila sa local? Kasi unfair naman na hindi pa bobotohin ng senior citizen at saka people with comorbidity sa local. Parang depriving them of their right to vote.
They have 2 options kasi what I was suggesting was that they should have 2 options. Either they vote early, manual, and only national, which is actually what's being done with the AFP, with the PNP, the teachers. If they vote early kasi, they're supposed to use the manual ballots. But if it's on the day, ayun, then they can avail of the usual ballots.
But can the Comelec not make arrangement that even if they vote early, they can vote for local officials?
Director Elnas, the
Ma'am?
question here was, if you recall, the question was the security of the ballots. We cannot open them before the day of the election, di ba?
Yes, ma'am, but operationally, pwede naman yung ano, ma'am, si shade lang nila, but on the day of the elections, ihahatid kung saan yung presinto para isama na sa batch feeding. So that they will be using still yung balota na automated ballot, but without the benefit of themselves feeding into the machine.
Marami yatang nininervyos dyan kasi
Yun lang ang problema dyan, ma'am. May mga security issues tayo. And
Kasi, Senator Amy, I don't think na makakaya na iboto ng one day yung lahat na yon pag may ganyang safety protocol, safety health protocol. Mahirap yan. I think magkakagulo sa presinto. Yeah. Unless damihan natin yung mga precinct places, yung ano.
That's right.
Otherwise, magkakagulo yan, magkahawahan yan.
Yung ideal nga namin sana was 500, di ba, Director Elnas? Yun ang dinidiscuss namin na hanggat kaya, 500 sana kada presinto lang. Kaso nga, mukhang kinukulang yung mga VCM.
But since we're far from election, maybe we can do something about it and prepare for that. Kasi tingin ko, if we follow the same protocol, magkakagulo kasi mas matagal because of the health protocol. Hindi makakaboto mga tao.
I agree po. That's why medyo kinakabahan rin tayo, and I'm happy that Yusek Alain is here from DepEd. They've actually volunteered to do a two-shifting process. Kasi ayaw nga ng Comelec at marami sa atin na mag-overnight pa o magdalawa o tatlong araw. Kasi mas lalo nakakatakot na naman yung delay. Kaya lang, marami rin kinakabahan sa dalawang shift. Kasi pag turnover, magulo na naman. Although the teachers have been very helpful and supportive, saying that they're willing to do it. Yun nga lang, may budgetary na naman. Doble na naman yung allowance sa teachers. Maybe Yusek Alain can explain.
Thank you, Madam Senator.
We're talking about lengthening the hours, no? 2019,
Yes,
mahaba na yung oras di ba? Pero hahabaan pa raw.
Yes, ma'am. Kasi during the previous elections, we have observed and our public school teachers have reported that they usually wake up and start the day at 4 a.m., some even earlier. And then they finish at night at about 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. Masyado nang overstretch, ma'am, yung number of hours. Tapos sa gabi, wala pa silang makukuhang transportation kahit may transportation allowance pa sila. So because of this difficulty, we have proposed we have submitted some proposals to Comelec. Sabi nga namin baka pwedeng two shift para mas maayos yung trabaho ng mga teacher. At saka yung sa transportation, imbes na transportation allowance, baka pwede yan i-commander yung o i-deputize ng Comelec yung mga sasakyan. Kasi kahit may pera sila, ma'am, kahit may pera sila, Madam Senator, na pang travel, pang arkila, wala naman makukuhang mga tricycle.
Wala naman mapasada ng ganong ka-late sa probinsya.
Yun na nga, ma'am Kaya yun yung
maybe baka yung barangay pwede silang mag-service, may mga sasakyan naman ng barangay.
That's right.
And I think long hours, and then hindi talaga magagawa na with this kind of protocol na matapos yung election on the same thing. Dapat yata damihan yung presinto.
Correct. Director Elnas, is that workable? Because many of your election officers have been complaining that two shifts will become unmanageable and impossible to secure sa turnover.
Tama yun, ma'am.
Baka more election precinct na lang, more places to vote.
An additional budget for Red Bull. For the teachers.
Sana, ma'am, but unfortunately at present we only have, I think if I remember it right, 97,000 BCMs.
Di bumili, may time pa naman bumili kaysa ma-postpone ng election.
Correct.
at magkagulo election. Bumili na lang, 'di ba? Kasi at saka yung ako, I used to be a watcher in an election because my father was a mayor when I was young. So I used to watch election procedure. Ang hirap-hirap na nga without this protocol, health protocol. Ang hirap-hirap na ng election sa presinto. I have been experiencing election in the precinct. Tapos may health protocol pa, di lalo magkakagulo. Dapat damihan nyo na lang ang election precinct at election places para wag magkagulo. Kasi magkakagulo yan. Baka hindi bumoto mga tao. Matakot.
Yung ideal nga noon, yung tigfa 500, pero sinasabi ni Director Elnas, kakayanin lang nila 1,000 kada precinct. Doble yun ang gusto natin,
Yes, ma'am. With that, ma'am, with your permission, we will bring that matter to the steering committee kasi kailangan ng policy yan. And of course, yung process ng pagbili for additional DCMs and of course, yung process ng bidding and the availability of funds.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
It's good that we're talking about it as early as today so we can do something about it. Magkakagulo yan.
In February, in fairness, nagtatag na yung Comelec ng task force tungkol sa COVID elections dahil nga dun sa Palawan. Kaya medyo maganda yung takbo nun. So hopefully, as Senator Villar says, we should be able to prepare.
Yeah, but Palawan is a less populated place. My God, if you're in Metro Manila, my God, that's very different. And in the cities, it's very different. Oo. So, medyo mas konti pa tao sa Palawan. Oo. But dito sa amin, maraming tao dito. Naku, magkakagulo kami. Oo.
Senator Tolentino, I think this impinges
Yes.
also on the BARM. Kakayanin kayo ng mga two-shift at early voting. Naku po, Senator Tolentino.
Madam Chair, siguro dito papasok yung hybrid elections.
Kaya
So, even with a COVID situation, I think that would ease the long lines. And suggestion ko lang, since relative to my first question, since the Comelec is inclined to deputize the OH and other health workers, perhaps they should likewise think of the possibility of not just deputizing the persons, but the institutions and the centers. So I'm not talking of health centers to be used as a voting center. I'm talking of a satellite hospital to be used as a voting center to expand the voting process with medical protocols embedded kasi nandun na sila. So yun lang po, Madam Chair.
Ginagawa naman nagdadala naman ng special polling place sa Home for the Aged, dati-rati yung Comelec, pati sa mga preso, sa detainees para makaboto sila. But like you said, I think we'll probably have to try and expand this. Ang problema nga yung balota, kung yung manual ba, o talagang pipilitin natin na buklatin na yung printed. Yun ang problema. Senator Villar, please.
At saka ngayon, ang dami-dami na multipurpose center sa lahat ng lugar sa Pilipinas. So, pwede rin gawing voting places yon, yung voting, ano ba tawag doon? Yun. Kasi sa amin, mas madami pa yata ang covered court kaysa eskwelahan eh. Mahilig ang mga tao sa covered court. So, I guess that can be voting places also.
Director Elnas,
Yes.
is there a Comelec limitation? Kasi parati na lang public school building. Doon nagre-reklamo nga yung PWD at yung seniors, di naman nila maakyat yung second, third floor. Pati yung DepEd na may edad na nagre-reklamo kasi akyat pa na. Ngayon, ang sinasabi ng DOH, kinakailangan open cross ventilation. So, meron bang limitation? Can we set up precincts elsewhere besides these schools? Pwede ba dun sa multipurpose, auditorium, ganun? At yung mga stadium na ginagamit, mas bukas yun eh.
Actually, ma'am, wala namang limitation. Ang default lang talaga natin dyan, ma'am, is public school buildings or classrooms. But at present, mayroon na tayong mga voting centers na covered court, basketball court, gym. So mayroon na tayo. In fact, mayroon pang ibang ano natin dyan, yung mga multi-purpose building sa barangay. yung
Yes.
ginagamit natin. And as of now, ma'am, we are having an inventory of all these open spaces, covered courts, other spacious buildings within the barangay, so that in the event na pwede nating i-transfer yung mga voting centers natin, of course, following the rules, following the procedures under the Omnibus Election Code.
Kasi parang mas safer yung ganon kesa sa nakakulob na naman sa eskwelahan.
Yes, ma'am. Tama, ma'am.
And as Senator Villar observed, napakarami ng multipurpose building ngayon. Kada barangay, halos may 2, 3 yung iba.
Yes, ma'am. Tama yan, ma'am. Especially dito sa Metro Manila, wherein isang school nagkikater ng 2 to 3 or 5 barangays. So, ang trend natin dyan ngayon is i-diffuse ito and place it in some other areas within near doon sa residence ng mga voters natin so that madiklag yung school at the same time mako-comply natin yung minimum health standards.
Okay. Dun sa VCMs, yes, Senator Villar speaking, parang audio please. Opo.
Sa amin, ang ginagamit na vaccination center are the covered court.
That's right.
So kung ginagamit na vaccination center, pwede din polling places, di ba?
Tama yan, ma'am. Taga Las Piñas po ako, ma'am. So nakita ko yung ma'am. Sa Talondos po ako, ma'am.
Oh, yeah.
Oo, nakita ko yung ma'am, nasa covered court basketball area yung yung sa malapit sa amin.
Director Elnas, doon sa bilangan, napansin ko na dumadami yung tao. Siyempre, excited, ano? Napansin ko doon sa mga footage at sa mga retrato, nagkukumpul-kumpulan yung mga tao sa bilangan eh.
Yes, ma'am. Isa din yun sa...
Hindi talaga maiwasan. Gusto-gusto talaga natin malaman ang resulta.
Yes, ma'am. Not only sa counting, ma'am, doon sa Palawan natin, sa template natin ng Palawan, we limit the number of watchers na papasok. We limit the number of voters. And of course, basic lang na andun yung electoral board. Just like, gaya din yan sa counting, ma'am, we limit it to the watchers para sila lang ang nandun. And siguro we by the time we will craft the general instructions for the next elections, incorporate na rin natin yan na we will discourage people from watching or witnessing or observing the counting. Anyway, andun na yung mga watchers.
Pwede ba mag-live stream? Halimbawa yung mga watchers, pinapayagan ba sila magdala ng phone tapos magla-live stream sila? Kasi syempre, ugaling Pilipino, parang piyesta yung bilangan eh.
Yes, ma'am, that's what we are looking also na i-allow natin yung live streaming, but hindi lang natin i-allow yung during voting na while a voter fills up the ballot, magkukuha ng magla-live stream, magkukuha ng video yung watchers or anybody else, ma'am. Pwede yung sa counting, ma'am, na
not during voting, but perhaps during canvas, counting and canvas. Tama ba yun?
Yes, ma'am, so that everybody will have access kahit wala sila physically, but virtually nakikita nila on what transpired doon sa loob ng presinto, ma'am.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Are there any other takeaways from the Palawan voting? In terms of budget, like you said, ang problema natin, may 17% increase ka, 22 million. Ngunit, halos lahat sinagot pala ng LGU.
Yes, ma'am. Because doon sa batas calling for the plebiscite sa Palawan, nakalagay doon na it's really the LGU that will shoulder all the expenses. But for purposes of the 2022 national and local elections, pinactor in na natin yung COVID supplies mula dito sa pag-prepare sa main office, sa mga warehouses natin hanggang sa polling places natin po. And that will include COVID supplies for our electoral boards, pati na yung other government agencies na magtatrabaho doon sa voting centers, performing election duties doon sa voting centers po.
I see. Eto nga, maybe you can help us also answer Senator Tolentino's query about the lack of an electoral code and no geographical divisions set up for BARM? Is there anyone who can answer the earlier query regarding the BARM election and the readiness of BTC to conduct such? Director Elnas or Attorney Rodriguez, either of you ba is familiar with the BARM setup?
Ma'am?
Yes, please.
On the sa side ng Comelec po, we were requested by the technical working group of the BTA to comment or make some suggestions and recommendations on the draft Bangsamoro Electoral Code, which the NBank last, if I remember it right, last May 11, approved the comments and recommendations na ginawa ng technical working group ng Comelec based din doon sa draft electoral code na sinabmit ng BTA. And I believe I believe na itatransmit na yon officially doon sa Bangsamoro Transition Authority, ma'am, or sa Bangsamoro government, ma'am, for their consideration.
So, Senator Tolentino, itatransmit na raw, tapos na daw yung draft nung May 11, approved na rin ng Comelec, at itatransmit na lamang sa BTA.
Pero ano pa yun, ma'am? Sa Comelec na side lang yun, ma'am. The technical working group of the Bangsamoro will discuss it, and sa Comelec side lang ang ma'am, yung recommendations and namin.
Does it include the geographical delineation of the parliamentary districts?
Hindi na namin tinakel yan, sir, because that will be the prerogative of the sir, doon sa BTA, sir.
So the code would consider the carving out of the parliamentary districts as an addendum or annex.
Yes, sir. Ang sa amin, yes, sir. Ang sa amin lang, sir, is yung
general principles.
Yes, sir. At saka yung provisions on registration, codification, and consolidation of election offenses, registration ng parties, accreditation ng parties, etc.
So the existing, with the permission of the chair, the existing omnibus election code would just serve as a supplement or will apply only in a suppletory character. The main code, the main operative code would be the one supposed to be enacted by the Bangsamoro Parliament. Is that correct?
Tama yan, sir. It's not only BP 881 but as well as 9369 on automation law, 8189 on registration, and at such other election laws na in force and effect as of now, sir.
So final question, if there is no electoral code and parliamentary districting, can we apply just the omnibus election code? Can Comelec enforce all election laws and conduct an elections without a Bangsamoro electoral code?
Sa opinion ko dyan, sir, is we can still conduct as far as the local elections for Bangsamoro, but as far as the parliamentary elections doon, mahirapan kasi kami, sir, kasi wala kaming basis on sa allocation ng ballots, pag-print ng ballots, etc.
So local elections would be the mayors, councilors, governors.
Okay lang yan, sir. Walang problema, sir, except itong
parliament.
Yes, sir.
But the parliament, can you conduct?
Medyo mahirapan. Mayroon kaming operational at saka administrative dyan, sir, issues. Dahil one, anong basis namin, saka second, yung sa filing ng COC, etc., sir. Pati yung pag-print ng ballots, allocation, etc.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you very much. And does that mean, Director Elnas, if the BTA determine not to automate their elections, they can do so, balik manual?
Hindi po they would follow the template dito sa national natin, ma'am. Because
Akala
basically
ko supplementary lang in character yung national electoral laws.
Kasi sa 9369, ma'am, it's mandated na elections for the national and local elections shall be automated, ma'am.
As a matter of fact, I recall that the pilot for automation was actually conducted in the old ARMM, di ba?
Tama yun, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. So I hope that told us something, Senator Tolentino. But in the meantime, I would also like to know if there's an IATF representative here. Comsec. May IATF tayo? Walang dumating?
Only DOH, ma'am, sent a letter to us confirming their attendees. I sent a letter, ma'am, to IATF.
Yes, that's
The
fine.
DOH and
Never mind the letters. Did someone turn up?
none for
Okay.
IATF.
If that's the case, let's call on the DICT and the DOST because we're very excited about the use of the digital signatures. Medyo binibida natin na DICT and DOST are now capable of using digital signatures and that the Comelec has gathered them, as a matter of fact, from the BEIs from precinct level all the way up. As a matter of fact, I think Commissioner Ko even announced that digital receipts to the transparency server could now be provided. Can we hear from the DICT Comelec Advisory Council, please?
Director Urbistondo Jr. po.
Is there anyone from DICT or DOST?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah. Opa.
Good-
Yes.
Good morning. From the OST.
Yes. There's been a lot of media coverage regarding your newfound capacity to provide digital signatures as well as a digital receipt.
Yes, ma'am.
That's something we can look forward to.
The digital signatures are primarily within the domain of the DICT. They are the ones who manage the public key infrastructure as well as the enrollment and issuance of the personal digital signatures
I
for our
understand.
BIs.
Is there anyone from the DICT here? Committee Secretary, please.
Yes, ma'am. Director Urbistondo Jr. po.
Yes, I think you were calling him earlier. Is he still around?
Madam Chair, good morning.
Yeah, can you turn on your video? It's a little bit difficult to follow. Marami-rami kasi tayo eh. Pasensya. Yes, DICT, please. Saan na siya? Ayan, okay. Yes, please proceed, DICT.
Yes, Madam Chair, good morning once again. In terms of the ICT, we can provide digital signatures. In fact, we have target for this year. In fact, our
No, the reason being that the digital signatures were promised in the last two elections, but in fact, they did not occur. So we would like to know if in fact they will be happening this time, finally.
we will push through with it, Madam Chair.
Ano yun?
We will push through with it.
Yeah, I understand that you already collected signatures, kaya nga we wanted to know kung magagamit ba talaga yan.
Yes, po, ma'am.
Yeah, but what's changed from 2019 to 2022 that makes it possible now when it wasn't possible before?
I think we will be having more dialogue with Comelec po in regards to this one.
I think digital signatures are enabled by infrastructure and engineering, not by dialogue. So have we invested in better systems and equipment or not?
Madam Chair, capable po naman tayo doon sa digital signature actually.
Sorry, you're very unclear. Yeah.
Sorry po. Capable po naman tayo doon sa digital signature. It can always be attached to document provided that it is required talaga po. Yeah.
No, but we've not used them before. That's my point.
Previously, kasi,
Talked about them for 2 elections and they never came to fruition. So I'd just like to know, maraming press release. Talaga bang mangyayari? Mapapahiya tayo.
it will, kasi, dito po si Yusek Manny, Chair. Can speak po. Thank you.
Yes, Yusek Manny,
Hi ma'am, nagda-drive lang po.
nasan ka na?
Park lang ako ma'am. Yes ma'am. Hello
Yes,
po.
yes, Yusek
Okay.
Kaintik.
Yes ma'am, hi ma'am. Good morning po. We are in talks now with Comelec. Nagplano po kami ngayon with DepEd for the enrollment of the 300,000 teachers to be able to use the digital signatures. Ang timeline namin is from September to January this year, mabigyan namin sila ng digital signing privileges. So
Okay.
tama po naman kayo. This is gonna be the first time. Ang challenge right now for me is yung issuance, yung pagbigay sa 300,000. Pero we are in talks naman with DepEd. We have a plan
What do you mean
right now.
issuance? What do you mean by issuance?
Issue ma'am, para ang teacher kaya niyang may kakayahan siya to sign the election return through the system po. Bigyan sila ng signing authority, a digital signature po.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yes po.
okay.
So, ang challenge at this point, ngayon nandun kami sa pag-register para magkaroon sila, ma-issuean sila ng digital signature at magamit sa election po.
So right
Tapos,
now, I'm
sa
sorry.
election day proper, Senator, tuturuan din natin sila kung paano gamitin on the election day proper ang pag-sign ng election return po.
Okay, you have the equipment for this because as I recall, yun nga, hindi nangyari. Ano yung pagbabago mula ng 2019 hanggang 2022? Nakabili ba kayo ng
Okay.
additional equipment? May systems ba tayo? Ano ba nagbago na kaya na ninyo ngayon?
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Noong 2019, hindi umabot ang pagbigay namin ng issuance, yung kakayahan to issue at that time. Hindi kami nakapagpabid earlier para makapag-issue po. At saka, late na bigay sa amin ang timeline po. January na kami nag-umpisa, May na yon. So ngayon po, inagahan po namin, ma'am.
Okay. So, sino ba na-delay yung issuance? So, sino ba
Na-delay
nag-delay
ako,
ng issuance? Sino na-delay? Comelec o kayo?
Bitin na po yung timeline nun, ma'am. Ilalagay kasi
Kaya nga,
ng
sino
digital
ba
certificate
nagbibigay ng
sa-
issuance?
Kami po, no, ma'am. 2019, 2018, 2019 po yun dapat, ma'am.
Kasalanan pala ninyo So, kasalanan pala ninyo na late kayo. Ang
I
DICT
think, ma'am,
lang na late.
Hindi, ma'am. It was in the coordination of the timelines po, ma'am. Yun po, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Yes, Yusek Alain ba? Or
ma'am,
Director Elnas?
Director Elnas po, ma'am.
Okay. Sige.
Update lang, ma'am.
Sa
Ma'am.
explanation. Yes, please.
Ma'am, update lang, ma'am. As of now, tapos na yung pag-uusap namin with the ICT, and in fact, tapos na yung seminar and lecture natin, pagbigay ng instruction sa lahat ng mga election officers natin at provincial election supervisors as far as the enrollment of the digital signatures of the electoral board. And na-deploy na rin namin yung mga equipment that will be used for the enrollment of the digital signature of the electoral board. So we'll be starting the actual enrollment. I-jumpstart na namin yan by June para in time makuha na namin lahat and magamit natin sa elections.
Kaya nga kaya nagtataka ako bakit sinasabi ni Manny Kaintik na bakit sinasabi ni Yusek Manny September pa kung pwede na ngayon kasi nababalitaan ko nag-enroll na daw yung mga teachers Is that correct, Yusek Alain?
Tama po,
Madam
ma'am.
Chair.
Tama po. Tapos na po kami sa aming training sa Comelec and
Time pa ng September na.
Madam
sige
Chair.
po, ma'am.
Sino po
Yeah.
yun? Sabay-sabay tayo. DepEd,
Madam Chair.
Mr. Alain, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, the Comelec actually already approved a resolution requiring all public school teachers who will serve in the electoral board to register dun sa Philippine National Public Key Infrastructure or PNPKI digital signature. What we
Right.
do on the part of the DepEd is to request the ICT to waive some of the hard copy requirement, but instead DepEd would be providing them Excel file or CSV file containing DepEd employees' verified data for bulk processing. Because we're looking here of about 900,000 of DepEd employees, and we can do this. We can register via online. We have already provided them the way, the methodology of how we will do it, and I think the ICT is now evaluating that methodology. Kasi pag magawa namin yan, Madam Chair, well, July tapos na yan. Meron na digital signatures lahat.
Eh di mabuti yung ganon para mabilis kasi parating dahilan, delay, tapos nagkakaturuan. Eh mas maganda, agahan na natin. Sabi nga ni Senator Villar apakaraming health protocols. Kung anong magagawang maaga, gawin na.
Tama po. Sige pa, ma'am. At tama po si Yusek Alain, ma'am. Nire-relax po namin yung pag-enroll at sa tulong po ng DepEd, kanilang mga divisions and regions, katuwang po namin sila sa pag-enroll at distribute ng mga digital signatures sa mga election officers po. Thank you po.
Yeah, but I think Yusek Alain is correct. You should just piggyback on their system given that they're highly accustomed to registering and monitoring their 900,000 employees at DepEd. So perhaps just plugging into that online registry system will expedite the entire process. So
Duly noted, ma'am, and
natin
we're
yan.
considering that, Madam Chair. Thank you po.
Okay. Ano yung digital receipt to the transparency server? Ano ibig sabihin ng digital receipt na nabalitaan? In-announce yata ni Commissioner ko ng Comelec at sumang-ayon naman yung DICT. Ano ba yung receipt?
Ma'am, perhaps the Comelec can explain on that, ma'am. We're on the signing po.
Sige. Thank you very much, Yusek Mani. Director Elnas, you are aware of this digital receipt?
If ma'am, I refer lang kita sa representative from the Information Technology Department namin, ma'am. I think he is in attendance, si Engineer Odek. Odek, kung nandito ka para ma-explain.
Okay lang naman. It's just a point of information. If it's not available right now, I'm perfectly happy to receive it in writing later on. Yes?
Yes,
Sorry.
ma'am. I'm sorry, ma'am. Medyo technical yung aspect na yan.
Kaya nga
Sige.
Sir, just a short description po, Madam Chair, dun sa voter receipt. The purpose po is to have the voter receipt of the BCM also transmitted to the transparency server.
I'm sorry, these digital
political parties
receipts
and
are,
media.
I'm sorry, are these voter receipts?
Yes, ma'am.
Sabi mo
The same po.
voter receipt. Akala ko yung
Voter
digital
receipt po.
receipt. Ha?
Voter receipt po, voter receipt.
It will be digitally transmitted. The voter receipts, all those millions and millions of receipts will be transmitted to the transparency server?
Yes po.
Okay. All right. And that helps us how? Not the ERs pala.
For audit po, ma'am. For audit and transparency po.
Okay.
Kasi that's one of the requests po from political parties and media practitioners for them to have the comparison po dun sa BCM and sa transparency.
How soon will the digital voter receipts arrive at the transparency server?
That will be the same time po, ma'am, nung ER.
Real time sa ER?
Yes po.
Okay. All right, thanks. If you can just submit something, because like you said earlier, it's quite technical, and perhaps you can give us a little more detail regarding that. Okay, thank you very much. The ICT. Isa rin pinag-aabalahan natin yung sa DFA. I know there are representatives here regarding overseas voting because we have such a miserable turnout. Is there anyone from DFA who is able to answer that query?
Good morning.
Yes. Please
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Zoilo Velasco po, DFA Overseas Voting Secretariat Vice Chair. Yes, indeed, Madam Chair, there's been a slow registration because of the pandemic, and that has been actually shown by the numbers. As of today, as of yes.
Wala pa ako sa pandemic. Ang sinasabi ko yung 2019 yata, 300,000 lang yata bumoto, 330,000. Sa 1.8
yes,
million na nagrehistro, 330,000 lang.
With respect to the voter turnout, 336,000 po. That's 18.47%.
Speak slowly, please.
It's 336,549.
That's right.
That's 18.47% po of the total registered for the 2019 senatorial election.
Oo, bakit ganun ka-konti at ang dami-daming reklamo na hindi dumating ang balota at magulo?
Yung sa postal voting
This is really
po,
miserable. Ni hindi 20% ang nakaboto sa overseas. Alam ko, yung ating mga OFW, gustong-gustong bumoto ng mga yan.
yes ma'am.
At
Yung
dami
sa
Kaya nga ako nagtataka, ba't nagkaganon?
Ma'am, yung sa postal voting po, mayroon I think there was a problem with respect to encoding by the encoders ng on the Comelec part. Mali-mali mga addresses, the postal code, mali, the address, the
No, I'm confused.
even the country.
No,
even the country nagkamali. Yes, ma'am.
No, I'm confused. You managed to I don't think it's an encoding issue. I think it's much worse than that. Because 1.8 million at registered. Bakit 18% lang ang nakaboto? You managed to register bakit hindi nakaboto?
Yes, ma'am.
It's not an encoding issue kasi they're encoded na in the registration, di ba?
Yes, ma'am.
So, ibig sabihin, yung voting ang problema, ba't hindi nakaboto?
Yes, ma'am. I think, ma'am, historically po kasi talagang ganun yung voter turnout. So, for example, in 2013 senatorial election, it's 16.11% po ang voter turnout. So, medyo nag-increase na siya for the 2019, naging 18.47. I think it's also po the mindset of the people. So, marami sa kanila nag-register kasi they were hoping they could get the voters ID, but then when election time comes, hindi na sila naging that active to vote, even despite the information drive by the Foreign Service Posts, by the DFA, by the Comelec. Medyo
lahat kaming senador na narito, tumakbo noong 2019 si Senator Villar, Senator Tolentino, lahat kami tumakbo. At lahat kami, I'm sure, rinaklamuhan ng ating mga OFW, di daw sila nakaboto at walang balota, magulo, wala raw pangalan. Ano ba nangyari?
May mga ganong issue po, ma'am.
Bakit tayo nag-i-improve halos? Kada election, yung OFW, hindi pa rin nakakaboto.
May mga ganong issue nga po, ma'am, at yun po yung ina-address namin with Comelec kasi, for example, what I was referring to with respect dun sa mali sa encoding, I think we are now trying to clean up the list of voters para ma-ensure that, the ballots arrive to the place, to the person itself. Ang problema din po kasi, ma'am, yung ibang mga OFWs, palipat-lipat sila ng tirahan because they don't own the homes naman kasi they just rent their homes abroad. Minsan palipat-lipat, after a few months lipat na naman ng ibang tirahan. So karamihan nagre-return to sender po, nagre-return sa post sa embassy yung mga kanilang balota. but then
I
they're not
recall
able
that
to.
Commissioner Guanzon, because of this, was recommending na kung pwede online na lang yung registration. At saka may mga recommendation na international registry ang i-maintain na yung mga address medyo maluwag. Lalo na yung sinasabi ni Senator Tolentino, yung mga seamen. Ako naman, pinoproblema ko yung mga repatriated at umaasang ma-deploy muli, baka bago umabot ng Mayo. So, anong magandang gawin?
Ma'am, yung with respect to the seamen, they can vote anywhere po actually. So whichever post they are during the election period, they can go there po and cast a ballot. So ang ginagawa po ng
we apply the same vote anywhere setup with repatriated OFWs? Kasi nga, they're hanging around here, they're registered overseas, they might get deployed overseas again. Hindi ba pwedeng vote anywhere rin, local and overseas?
Yes, ma'am. I actually had a meeting with OFOB just a few days back, and that's one of the.
I can't hear what that is.
Sorry, the Office of for Overseas Voting, Office for Overseas Voting po within the Comelec, ma'am. That's OFOB. So sila pa yung counterpart namin sa overseas voting sa DFA, and we had a meeting with them. At yun po yung isang mechanism na titingnan nila so that repatriated Filipinos can just vote here in the Philippines whenever they are here and in time before they go back to their workplaces so that we could capture them po, their vote.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Tolentino, please.
Yung sinabi kanina that they can vote anywhere, parang sa realidad on the ground, napakahirap sa mga seafarers natin. For instance, a seafarer docking in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, they cannot vote in Rotterdam. They have to go to The Hague, to the embassy. So they have to travel several hours to reach the embassy. The same is true with other places. So it's not voting anywhere. It's voting where the embassy or consulate is located, and that unduly burdens the seafarer. So hindi pa makaisip ng paraan na online na lang sila kasi wala namang connectivity siguro sa barko. Pero pagbaba nila, pagdaong nila, baka pwedeng mag-connect na lang doon sa konsulada para doon ipasok yung boto nila. In that way, you save time as well as you increase the voting opportunity for the seafarers. Otherwise, walang boboto. Mahirapang bumoto kasi gagastos pa sila para pumunta sa embassy. Buti kung bukas yun. Buti kung may tao doon. So it's really an additional hardship on the part of our seafarers traveling to another place far from the place where they docked or temporarily where their vessel transited. So hindi totoo vote anywhere. Otherwise, siguro kung makaisip kayo ng mode wherein bilang naman yung mga ports Berlin, Frankfurt, Rotterdam, yung malalaki, di ba? So, ba't hindi lumabas yung embassy personnel para doon na lang sa makipag-coordinate doon sa port authorities, doon na lang bumoto rather than wait for them to visit your embassy. Pwede kaya yan?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Actually, sir, that's what the embassies are doing in these places where there's a port, sir. So what that's what we call agyat barko. So the people from the embassy consulate go to the place, coordinate with the port authorities para they could set up a table or could go up to the ship, sir. Yun lang. Yung iba talaga.
Sorry, sorry. Carry on.
Ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So why don't we do it again in a more expansive manner? Para yung mga napapunta, makapasyal pa kayo, nakaikot kayo ng mga lugar na outside your embassy. Di ba?
Definitely, Senator. Yes, sir.
Okay. Are you still speaking, Mr. Velasco?
If I may po, Senator, with respect naman dito sa Senate Resolution 716. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. The position of the DFA OVS is simple. In as much as our participation is overseas any legislation that the Philippines enacts will be implemented by foreign service posts, but only insofar as it is in harmony with local health and safety regulations. Our foreign service posts will also need to follow the local and health and safety protocols against COVID-19 in the conduct of overseas voting in their jurisdictions. But perhaps po, our input to this meeting is to present to the committee some of the experiences of other countries that have conducted their elections despite the pandemic, as reported by our foreign service posts. Some of the common practices po, without enacting separate legislation, involve strict implementation of health and safety protocols, na discuss na po kanina. Sabi ng iba, it's the use of face masks, maintaining adequate distance, equipping poll stations with disinfectants, and even sinks po for hand washing. May mga posts na may mga countries na gumaganon. And just as what Senator Cynthia Villar po said, increasing the number of poll stations to avoid large gathering of people during election day. Some countries also did that po. Then setting up a website or app where voters can check the queue status or the crowd size at their polling stations. Priority voting or advanced voting at polling stations for those identified in risk groups, namely senior citizens and those who have chronic illnesses. And for some countries po, postal voting and electronic voting are already allowed. And there are also countries that...
Sorry, they're allowed in those countries, or you're saying we should allow them?
They are allowed already in certain countries po.
Yes, they're allowed in many countries. You're saying that we should allow Filipinos to do the same. Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily, but that's a policy.
Of Commissioner Guanzon. And that's been the crying need for the OFWs to vote.
Actually, ma'am, opo, meron po yatang ginagawa ngayon na test drive for electronic voting for overseas voters, pero it's still in the planning stage po. So hopefully it could push through.
Well, it's all about security, right? Nobody is confident that we can maintain the safeguards necessary for both mail-in as well as electronic voting. That's the problem, di ba?
Yes, Madam Senator. And if I may continue po, konti na lang, there are countries that also enacted special or temporary and mandatory legislations to address the question of voting amidst the pandemic. For example, in Portugal po, the presidential national elections was held on 24th of January 2021, and it was at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. They passed a law which provide the electorate the option to vote earlier than the scheduled January 24 elections. So
that's what I'm trying to do. Actually, I already sponsored it on the floor of the Senate, that we expand the early voting so that as many as can vote early. Yun nga lang, the problem cited na maraming umaalma, hindi sila makaboto ng lokal.
Yes, ma'am. So for this purpose, the Portuguese citizens had to register in advance for this option. There's also the option of vote collecting service, which is offered to those who are unable to go to the polling stations, particularly the sick and the elderly. So their ballots are collected at their resident homes or elderly care homes by the municipal representatives wearing protective equipment, and they are accompanied by police officers. And in Norway, they also they will have their parliamentary elections in September 2021. So they made some temporary amendments to the Electoral Act and Local Government Act. So voters who are in isolation, meaning those who are confirmed to be COVID positive, should vote from home. They can apply for this mode of voting until 10 a.m. on election day. And those voters who are quarantined should not vote in ordinary polling stations.
No, until today, we're not allowed to do so, whether mail-in or electronic. As a result, Comelec will have its hands full running around quarantine facilities, possibly isolation centers and hospitals, at ganun din sa mga dating suki nila sa Home for the Aged, yung mga detainees sa BJMP at iba pang mga facilities. So, yun nga, tama yun. Problema natin talaga.
Yes, ma'am. And then also, these municipalities can start counting advance votes the day before the election day itself. And lastly, just the last example I have is in Chile, it passed a law which extended the election day to 2 days instead of 1. So under said law, the elderly, pregnant women, PWDs, and those with chronic illnesses were allowed to vote during specific timelines ahead of the others during the first day, and the rest of the population on the second day. So we will submit po, Madam Chair, matrix of submissions made by the
Thank you.
hosts.
Yes, those issues have been raised. They've been submitted. So that's something we should consider, Director Elnas. I know that the Comelec has rule-making power. How far does it extend, and at which point do we need legislation? Maybe Attorney Rodriguez has finally turned up, or is Director Elnas or someone from the Comelec able to help us here? So sabi mo kanina, hindi naman kailangan ng bagong batas para gamitin yung mga multipurpose hall, auditorium. Hindi naman talaga kailangan, wala naman nakatakda na kailangan eskwelahan, hindi ba?
Yes. Tama yan, ma'am. For ma'am, sa legal aspect, ma'am, may I request Attorney Rodriguez?
Yes, kasi nag-file ako ng early voting at in fact nasa plenary na, sana mabigyan ng konting priority. Ang alam natin kasi yung APP hindi nag-work kasi ayaw ng mga seniors na hiwalay sila tapos wala silang priority, magulo rin daw sa APP. So what we're recommending is instead of the makeshift EAP, dun na gawin somewhere near the precinct na rin yung dating APP. Any thoughts, Director Elnas?
Yes, ma'am. One is yung yung establishment ng APP.
Wala halos isa lang yata sa munisipyo, maswerte na. Sa Pangasinan, laki-laking probinsya, isa sa buong probinsya.
Yes, ma'am. Maganda yung yung kung mapostro, we just need the law. Kung magkakaroon tayo ng early voting and of course parang template ng local absentee voting lang natin yan.
That's right.
In-expand lang natin, that will cover senior citizens and of course the persons with disability.
Ang dami na nagpapa-cover yung mga nasa quarantine, sa isolation, pati sa ospital. Tapos nagpapa-cover na rin yung mga internally displaced persons, yung ating mga bakwit. Kasi andun pa rin sila sa refugee centers. Napakarami na rin ang repatriated OFW na kung saan sa napadpad. So, Senator Villar, please.
Bakit hindi na lang tayo, para kung ayaw nyo ng 2 days, maglagay na lang ng separate polling place for the, yung mga senior citizen at saka yung people with comorbidity.
Yes.
Isang polling place para kung ayaw nyo ng 2 days. Kasi palagay ko, hindi sila papayag na hindi sila boboto sa local.
Syempre, bakit hindi sila boboto? Lifelong voters yan. Kumbaga, sila na nga yung pinaka-invested sa lahat
Oo. So, gumawa na lang ng separate polling place para sa kanila. Sa bawat barangay. Oo. Di bali magkasanda tayo. Magkagasta tayo. Wala namang problema pag eleksyon. Wala namang problema ang Congress na magbigay ng budget eleksyon. Di ba?
Thank you for that, ma'am.
Lalo naman pangit yung ma-postpone ng election at magkagulo election, mas a bigger cost sa atin yun. Di budget na lang natin, di ba?
Yeah, dapat paghandaan at saka gastusan yung kailangan. Yung sinasabi ko, yung APP model na nasa batas, hindi talaga nag-work kasi ayaw talaga ng mga seniors na hiwalay sila. At higit sa lahat, yung APP, wala na namang BCM. So wala namang kasiyahan na nagbibilangan. Gusto talaga nila involved din. So perhaps what we can do, we were discussing with Director Elnas, total may priority lay naman during the day of the election. Gawa na lang sila ng another area kung saan may mga assistive aids, may wheelchair ramp, and so on. And that's where they can vote and join their families and the rest of the voters watching the VCMs and so on. Any comment from the Comelec?
Senator Amy, dapat yata gawin mo na yung budget before tayo mag-budget deliberation para makasama sa budget deliberation.
Masyadong
Diba?
mabilis si Senator Villar sa budget.
Kasi,
Yun naman
kasi
yung
malapit na tayo eh. Malapit na tayo eh. Sa August na yung budget eh, di ba? Sa August, pagbalik natin. Oo. So gawin na natin ngayong break para sa kasi pag-resume natin ng July session, hindi ba right, a few weeks after budget na yan. Oh, so baka sama sa budget.
That's right po. That's what that was what I was going to ask Comelec and everyone else involved if they had additional comments and requirements para i-budget na natin. Kasi right now, hindi pala makatotohanan yung gastos doon sa Palawan na additional 17% lang. Unang-una, maliit nga yung Palawan, pero ikalawa, sinagot naman ng LGU lahat yung plebiscite. So, hindi rin siya totoo kasi hindi alam ng Comelec magkano yung ginastos ng LGU.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So, that's what we will request Comelec and the rest para maigi naman yung paghanda natin. Talagang budgetan. Yun ang talagang sasabihin ko kung nasan ba tayo sa budget dyan, no? Comelec has been very candid and has repeatedly said that they need more budget, ano? And I believe so because DOH has imposed so many health protocols and limitations. Are there any other representatives present, both from the government agencies and the stakeholders, whom I've not called upon and have a few ideas to add to this discussion? Yes, Committee
Dr.
Secretary,
Mendoza?
hindi pa nagsasalita. Yung DBM ba at DOF, arito? Kasi nasa usaping budget na tayo.
Ma'am, DBM has technical difficulties daw po.
Well, that's convenient kasi karagdagan budget. Hindi, joke lang. Iniinis ko lang sila. Anyway.
Ma'am, Dr. Mendoza from Ateneo School of Government, they have, I think, a research paper.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, yes, that would be helpful. Dr. Mendoza, please. If you could share some of your insights from Ateneo, that would be helpful.
Madam Chair, Senator Villar, Senator Tolentino, thank you so much for organizing this early discussion to help us all coordinate and prepare for the May 2022 elections.
This is actually the second hearing. We had one in February. We're very, very nervous about this election. Thank you, Professor Mendoza.
Thank you, Sen Aimee. And I actually want to congratulate you on running the conversation in a very practical and directed way on the challenges. We have a statement which we just shared with Attorney Dana, so I will spare us from reading that statement. I just want to share a few points in reaction to the discussion as it is going so far. One is we have a study examining the best practices in other countries and what they spent in order to COVID-proof. This is the term that is being used right now. COVID-proof the plebiscite or elections in other countries. This is a sample of about 100 plebiscites or elections held already under pandemic conditions. And we found a comparator estimate which suggested that we may have to spend in the order of about 10 billion pesos in addition to what we are normally spending in order to just conduct safe, free and fair elections. So our comparator was actually the Indonesian election. In addition to this, we reached out.
Although the Indonesian election is very, very arcane and Byzantine. They have voting twice or thrice. Hindi ko nga maintindihan, ang gulo eh.
Indeed, Sen Aimee. And we will need to, so this is just a preliminary estimate so that we have an idea of what we're going to need to mobilize. But
that's not far from my personal estimate, which is 30% plus.
Yes. And in fact, Sen Aimee, I think my own opinion on the discussion and the arrangement is we cannot assume that we will just put more resources on the existing system. We need to rethink the design of how we run the election. So I very much agree with Senator Villar that we need to think about new polling places, innovations in how we arrange the throughput of the the people who are voting. And if we do this, we will need to then mobilize sufficient inputs from both the public sector and the private sector. So my second input is to share with you and Comelec and our colleagues in government that academia is very happy to support the preparations for our elections, and we are ready to help Comelec uh, calculate the exact amount and the design of the electoral process if they will need our help. And so far, Commissioner Ko has extended a very positive response to us. He joined one of our recent webinars. We are happy to work with them on the budget preparation and your committee to draw on the best practices that we have seen abroad. And you are correct. We cannot follow the exact steps of another country. We need to domesticate it to our conditions. And we also want to add that our group, which is called Participate, it's a pro-democracy coalition, is ready to enter talks with Comelec to find ways so that we can help in some of the inputs for preparing for the elections. This may include, for instance, the extra space that Senator Villar was pointing out, that private schools also have extra space. We are also spread out across the country, as you know, and we are happy to.
And quite well organized, as a matter of fact. I've met the group many times, and in addition to facilities, you're quite easy to contact and activate.
Thank you, Sen Aimee. And as you know, we are already helping also for the vaccination campaign. So as Senator Cynthia mentioned, it's the same setup potentially for the elections. It's open air. There's a lot of arrangements already in place, and we can actually draw on that learning as well. So I just want to end my brief intervention on a show of support for you and for Comelec, and you can count on Participate Coalition to help out.
Yes, thank you very much. I think you have access to a lot of techie students, and they'll probably have to help us with the live streaming option that we would like to add in the counting and canvas at every point of the electoral process.
Yes, indeed, Sen.
Ma'am?
Yes, who's that? Director Elnas again. Yes.
Dagdag ko lang, ma'am, no, before we conducted the plebiscite, and before we finalized the rules and regulations on the pleb, we consulted IATF on the process and procedures that we will be implementing for the pleb. And lahat ng nilatag muna namin before we finalized the rules and procedures. And of course, we made some consultations with the local health department and of course with the DOH and other stakeholders, including the ILG, just to make sure na ma-implement lahat yung rules and regulations natin, especially on the compliance ng minimum health standards and safety protocols.
Sorry, I'm muted. Yes, thank you very much, Director Elnas. Yes, I see some of my other NGO Suki here, Lente, Attorney Helen's here. I think there are a bunch of other people. Senpec, Democracy Watch, NAMFREL, PPCRV. Anyone needs to add something or has the solution to all our problems, better yet?
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Good morning.
Helen.
Yes, may I request to be recognized. So, yes, coming from the conversations through the Palawan plebiscite has been a very effective testing ground, and actually we really took the chance and the opportunity to be in it. That's why we deployed at least 150 volunteers to be on the ground to actually observe and check what's happening. So, ma'am, from our observation and from our series of consultations with public health experts, we would like to highlight a few of our recommendations, and we could give you the complete list, complete matrix for these amendments. So, ma'am,
Yes, please submit that. Yeah.
yes, so for the first first recommendation, we've observed that in Palawan there was no variations as to the level of quarantine at that time. But now we are prospectively coming into the NLE 2022. We would have to have rules that are flexible enough to cater to all the levels of community quarantine, because we will be catering to the entire archipelago. So the rule should be designed as such. And then
Ang mahirap
also
na dyan, kahit MECQ o GCQ, yung definition ng bawat LGU na iiba.
yes,
Kontra pa
yes.
sa IATF, kontra pa sa LTFRB, kontra pa sa DOH. Talagang mahirap.
Yes, ma'am. I think, yeah, ma'am, that's also an opportunity for all these government agencies to properly coordinate and to already establish that line of coordination. Kasi po, nakita namin during the Palawan plebiscite, marami pong pagdidiskarte, and we commend actually the OEOs, the election officers, to do in doing that. But sometimes po, yung pagdidiskarte could also be a waste of time and magkakaroon po ng confusion sa ating mga department and sa mga government agencies.
And
This,
that's
ma'am,
burden on our teachers. As Yusek Alain said, inaantok na yan. Alas 3 ng umaga, lumuwas na yan.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Nagkakaroon po sila ng confusion sino pong kakausapin, sino pong tatanungin if they have some questions both on the electoral process and also on the medical guidelines. Yes po. Tapos ma'am, we've also seen na there was a part of the period for the plebiscite was devoted for the information campaign, and we know na marami po kasing additional na steps, like lalo na po yung mga safety protocols. So it's very important to make sure that the information campaign, both at least for the NLEF, for the candidates and for the commission also, to make it very inclusive and to as to substance and as to reach. Kasi po, may mga municipalities who will not be reached by the level of infrastructure that we have. Like for example, ako po ma'am, I was assigned to a municipality.
Which was the whole point of the plebiscite, that
Yes,
the province is inaccessible and should thus be divided.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, I was assigned to a municipality na wala pong radio station. So I was able to witness that they actually do information campaigns face to face with health protocols, and they do yung mga ano po, parang announcement po talaga na by speakers lang. So we really encourage the commission and all the commission to set up a structure that would utilize po yung mga local radio stations, print, and even sa TV. And then ma'am, on another end, nagkaroon din po ng problema sa staffing. So nagkaroon po ng understaffing kasi po meron pong takot syempre na sa local transmission, and naging problema rin po ang understaffing kasi hindi po alam kung sino po ang dapat itap. For example po sa medical personnel, hindi po definite pa yung listahan kung sino yung qualified para maging medical personnel. Kaya po ngayon, isa po sa mga recommendation namin na dapat i-expand and i-define yung sino ang maging qualified at sino po doon ang limited. Kasi for example, ang mga licensed medical professionals, kunyari mga doctors natin, nurses, they can be assigned to a supervisory capacity kasi limited po sila. Pero marami po tayong pwedeng ilagay.
I just like a quick question there kasi yun nga yung issue kanina ng pagde-deputize ng volunteers, BHW. Comelec is the one that registers all of this and accredits them. How will you know? Hindi naman kayo doktor.
Tama yon, ma'am. We coordinated with the local health officials starting from the provincial health officer and of course down the line sa mga municipal health officers.
So sila magsasubmit sa inyo?
Yes, ma'am.
Magsasubmit sa inyo?
Yes, ma'am.
Kasi ang dami-daming mga volunteer kapag ganyan. Katulad sa vaccination, we should accept all the volunteers kasi nagkukulang nga tayo eh.
Yes, ma'am. So ang template namin, ma'am, are those personnel ng local DOH na the local health office natin.
WHO, mga
yung barangay
health,
yeah. Tsaka yung barangay health workers, ma'am.
Yeah,
If
the BHW.
in the municipality kulang because of the number of voting centers,
Or
So,
sobra. Tapos yung ina-credit mo, yung isa lang at yung iba hindi.
yes, ma'am. Pinupuno 'yan ng mga ng mga barangay health workers who has the experience already doon sa pag-impose ng minimum health standards and protocols.
Actually, actually, ma'am, dun sa
Yes, I totally agree with you and the professor that in fact there's no reason to be understaffed because there are so many volunteers for these exercises. Mabait ang Pilipino sa ganyan, talagang enjoy sa eleksyon higit sa lahat.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, Chair, kailangan lang din po ng maitirang training both for the medical personnel and also for the election personnel. Kasi po, napansin din po namin na kailangan na rin ng refresher para po maiwasan ang mga violations mismo ng ating mga election personnel. Tapos ma'am, moving naman...
Pinadaing ng Comelec, wala silang budget lagi. At saka pabago-bago ng patakaran, hindi na nila ma-update yung tauhan nila ng BEI.
Opo. Yes, ma'am, I think kailangan po talaga mag-focus doon sa training kasi po nagsisimula sa training kapag alam ng tao yung gagawin nila, pag-master na nila every step of the way. When it comes to operations, hindi na po nagkakaroon ng delay, hindi rin po nagkakaroon ng abuse. Tapos yun po. So next naman, the DOH mentioned on giving importance on ventilation and having open spaces. So this can be complemented by our recommendation of having an initial audit that will be led by the commission and will be supplemented by the health office officials and even the engineering officials. Kasi po through the audit, we can already check and have an inventory kung sino or anong mga lugar yung papasok doon sa qualifications that will make it safe to be a voting center. So that can be one activity that could be led by the commission in coordination with the health and even the engineering officials. And lastly,
I actually think that the vaccination template with all its mistakes and delays could actually be useful for us kasi na-identify na dun At alin yung may access sa senior citizen, may rampa, may assistive aids, may kung ano-anong gamitin ng wheelchair at iba pa. I think that's a big part of it. Gamitin natin yung listahan ng vaccination.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, right now, ma'am, the DTI already released a joint memorandum. They have the safety seal certification program. So, pwede rin po na maging resource po yun kasi nandun na po yung checklist kung ano po yung that would make the venue safer. And then lastly, ma'am, on the accountability part, we would recommend na the compliance with health protocols or the non-compliance to these protocols should be considered an election offense para rin po the personnel, the stakeholders, including the candidates and the voters would know the limits and why is it important to follow these protocols and para rin po ay yung mga violators, they have this level of accountability as early as now. Kasi po, we're nearing the filing of certificate of candidacy and then papasok na po tayo sa campaign period. So we know there will be a lot of activities that would entail crowd gathering. So we need to establish that level of accountability as early as now para po hindi po maging super spreader events ang mga activities po natin. And hopefully,
we definitely don't want an India on our hands.
Yes, ma'am. And hopefully, these recommendations will be enshrined in the general instructions, ma'am. And for the stakeholders, we can also list it down in a code of conduct para rin po informed lahat. Alam ng lahat ang dapat gawin at sumunod din po. Maraming salamat po, Chair.
Yes, including the stakeholders, NGOs, and accredited observers. Yeah, that's useful. Okay, thank you very much, Helen, and thank you for always being around. I think we have the DBM. Is that correct, Committee Secretary?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Magandang umaga po. Magandang hapon na po pala. This is James Evangelista from the DBM.
Hi. Marami ka ba
Yes.
pera? Yun lang ang tanong.
Ma'am, may we just note that the funds po for the 2022 NLEs are already with the Comelec since we already comprehensively released it to them. So, given this discussion po that we had this morning, for the procurement of the necessary materials or machines, they can include it po for the 2022 NEP since we are just in the process of budget deliberation po.
Yes, but you did hear that there's an additional 10 billion. I hope it's burning a hole in your pocket.
Yeah, ma'am. Given the given the Mandanas ruling pa po, ma'am, I think this has
Kaya
to
nga, sabay-sabay yan eh. Patay tayo
sabay-sabay
yan.
po even with the creation po ng mga new nag-renationalize po tayo ng mga health facilities, ma'am, given the COVID pandemic po eh.
Tapos may sinasabi pang DOH na CO2 monitor at kung ano-ano pang equipment para mag-disinfect. Patay tayo niyan.
Yes, ma'am. But I think pagdating po sa DOH, they have the budget naman po eh. They have some remaining budget with them, so
you're recommending that DOH donate to Comelec na lang?
they can work together po for this coming election.
Dahil mo, talagang hindi magre-release ng DBM ng panibagong pera. Basta magpunta na lang sila.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But if there is a justification for we can find a source po, then we can of course we can release the said amount po.
Kayo ha, talaga naman. Okay, so
thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
DBM.
Thank you, ma'am.
Who else is here? Is it
Namfrel po, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, who's representing Namfrel today, please?
Mr. Alvia po.
Yes, Namfrel, would you like to add anything po?
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Besides COVID proofing the elections, we have some suggestions that we can briefly discuss, if we may. May I call on Mr. J.R. Contreras of our technical and systems team to discuss it further? Because this goes hand in hand with preparing for the elections, but it has to be done now, hand in hand with COVID proofing the elections. May I call Mr.
Is JR here?
JR. Okay, JR.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Thanks, JR.
Thank
Yes,
you.
please proceed.
We did send a paper to Attorney Dana on our suggestion to enhance the integrity, considering the situation of the COVID pandemic. The standards that we were proposing, there are 5 standards. We are hoping that it will improve the reliability and the transparency of the election.
Yeah, I had to memorize. Naging 6 pa nga yung dinagdag mo, JR eh. Minememorize ko siya para, kunyari, teki rin ako pag pinagtanggol yung hybrid election sa plenary.
Kung pinadala namin, Madam Chair, will not entail additional budget. Or if it does, maliit lang po. So, I'll run through it quickly po. Yung first po, if we can standardize on the election software licensing. So, ito po walang additional cost. We will just require the licensing to be on open source or open source standard. Yan po yung number 1. That will entail us more time to review and more people to view the source code.
Hindi ba nabili na yan? Di ba nabili na sa Smartmatic? That was the second contract 2-3 weeks ago.
Opo.
Eh, hindi naman kung yun eh. Proprietarial naman siya. Hindi naman siya open source.
Opo. If we require the vendor to go open source po, yung pong process of the source code review will radically change and will allow us to have more eyes and more time to review it. If you look at the past elections po that were done on the automated method,
Yes, JR, you're preaching to the choir. Nadali na kami niyan.
Opo.
Yeah. That's right. Tingnan natin, but I'm not sure kasi the terms of the contract of Comelec and Smartmatic are still obscure.
Apo, yun po yung unang suggestion. Number 2 po, we would like to propose a standard on the printing of the ballots. Kung napunan nyo po, ang printing ng ballots natin are 2 standards po, Madam Chair. Yung isang standard, they sort it alphabetically. The other is they sort it randomly. So yung pong national position, except for the party list, are sorted alphabetically. Ang nire-recommend po namin, both on the technical point of view, is sorted randomly tapos binubunot na lang po. It protects a lot of things po, no? And it's possibly a technical solution sa naging problema po natin in the past election in which we have people forgetting to vote, for example, the vice presidency. Kasi po kung tatandaan nyo yung numero, hindi nyo nalalaktawan. Nandun po yun sa paper na sinadjust namin. Yung pong third na sinasuggest pa rin po namin is a standard on the printing. Yung printing po natin ngayon is just a printed standard that was developed by the provider. Ang nire-recommend lang po namin, Madam Chair, is to have a secondary printout of a QR code which will complement the printout of the manual. So meron pong manual na nababasa, tapos merong electronically mababasa which is the QR code. Again, it's a few lines of code, tapos you can do an independent count, you can do a hybrid count for both the ER and the VVPAT or the voter verification.
Have you raised these suggestions to Comelec?
We sent them the proposal po, and we presented this also with the Comelec.
Have you derived any reply?
Well, wala pa po, but we will follow up and we will present it to them as well.
Yeah, Director Elnas or Comelec, kung nandyan pa kayo, siguro pag-usapan na natin yan kasi hindi ko sigurado kung papayag yung Smartmatic o kaya ng ating mga machines or i-reconfigure ng katakot-takot. So, kinakailangan siguro ngayon pa lang tingnan na natin ang kakayahan ng ating mga makina.
Kaya po maaga namin pinipresent. From the technical point of view, we did the study to add the QR code at the last part of the VVPAT and the ER. It will take only a few lines of code, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yung change.
At nasanay na rin ang tao sa QR sa wakas dahil nga dito sa contact tracing.
Sanay na po tayo. At saka yun po, magiging standard procedure siya. May human readable po at may machine readable. Parang standard accounting procedure po. Double entry na siya. So yan po yung nire-recommend namin. Yung pangapat po, ginagawa na po ng Comelec na discuss po earlier, yung tamang paggamit ng digital signature. So tinutulak namin yon. And yung last po, yung pong transmission method, it should be transmitted through and through using a single format. Ang nire-recommend po namin, it's a technical format called EML or Election Markup Language. Ngayon po kasi, from the VCM to the consolidation, may standards po silang ginagamit. Pero pag binaba na po sa transparency server, it's a flat file.
Oo, nagta-translate pa siya eh.
Opo. So yung po, kung naalala niyo po, yung last election, we had a 7-hour blackout. It's because of the translation program that caused that.
Okay. I don't know. I've derived so many excuses na hindi ko na alam kung alin totoo.
Yung limang Madam Chair, we sent it to Attorney Dana na po. Tapos we sent also a copy to Comelec, and we will do presentations. If we may po, we can present it directly within your office para maipaliwanag po namin mas mahaba. Marami pong salamat.
Yes, I think it's relatively clear-cut, except nga, I don't know what are the limits of the Smartmatic contract. They have 2 new contracts. The second one obviously involves software, so that probably impinges on what you're saying today. And also, I'm not certain how aged those VCMs are and the rest of the equipment and if they can handle some of this. Although, like you said, yung QR, ano ba naman yun? Kukunti lang naman na code dyan. So thank you very much, JR and Eric. And I think last but not least, before I release you for lunch, virtual lunch ni walang pakain ngayon eh. Yung Democracy Watch yata, hindi pa yata nakapagsalita.
That's right.
Yes, please. Recognize.
I thank you.
Okay.
Paco Pangalangan po from Democracy
Okay.
Watch.
Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, I'll try to make it quick since I know people might be hungry. It is 12:36. But first, I wanted to express appreciation for the committee, for their efforts to have these discussions earlier in the process, especially also for Comelec's efforts and the DICT also that's here. I won't labor a lot of the points that some of the other partners have and resource speakers have raised, since I do echo a lot of the things that Dean Ron from Ateneo and Lente and Namfrel have said. about conducting safe and fair elections in 2022. And as well, we'll be submitting a written statement. If there's one point, though, that I think I wanted to add, and it builds off of what Namfrel earlier said about the use of technology in 2022, in particular, the use of these automated machines. Democracy Watch has data that shows that 91% of Filipinos prefer the continued use of these machines for elections. There's trust in it, and there's accountability and transparency.
Yes, I agree.
Yes. But also there's, of course, the impact it has and the help it gives in terms of social distancing, of course, is a big consideration, and the prolonged exposure of people to crowds given the COVID-19 pandemic. But aside from that, really, the last point, really, the second and last point, as I said, this would be quick, is that I also wanted to offer and highlight, civil society groups such as Democracy Watch and the role that civil society has in creating platforms to discuss and raise awareness for safe elections. And of course, I just wanted to make sure that it offer up Democracy Watch as a partner moving forward as we all hope for a safe and fair elections in 2022. Yun lang po. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. And you're right. We complain constantly about understaffed elections, understaffed registration, when in fact there's a huge untapped group in civil society, volunteers from everywhere, and students in our schools that would like to participate. I think that we should take cognizance of that and finally acknowledge their pivotal role in all these democratic exercises. Most of all in the elections. So, isang malaking bagay yun yung mga SK na nag-graduate na, naging 18 years old na. It's important that we capture them and make sure that they vote. I think PPCRV may hirit pa. Tama ba?
Yes po, and Philippine Medical Association po.
Sige. Okay, PPCRV please. Nauna yata kayo.
Opo. First of all, let me
Pahiwagang
congratulate.
subukirin kayo. Higit sa lahat. Okay, yes, doctor.
Yes. First of all, let me congratulate the Senate Committee on Electoral Reforms together with some of the other members, including all the stakeholders from the government to the various NGOs present today. Allow me to mention some of the things that were discussed earlier. First of all, let me assure Madam Senator that PPCRB will be again volunteering ourselves, especially in the presence of the PPCRB Voters Assistance Desk. That's one. Secondly, we will try our best to cover 100% of all the clustered precincts, kahit po dumoble pa yung number ng clustered precincts natin. For sure, PPCRB are also in consonance with the suggestion of Senator Villar with regards to increasing the number of clustered precincts. Kung po pwede nga talaga na from 1,000 to 800, gawin nating 500. In fact, earlier, we even proposed sana kung mga pwedeng 400 maximum per clustered precinct. And then with regards naman dun sa...
I don't know if it's all about the budget. I think, at this point, we're counting upwards of 116,000 clustered precincts na. Yan na yung proposal. Ewan ko kung magagawa.
Yes, but the 115,000 na proposal ng Comelec last year is covering for 700 to 800. So nagulat lang ako for the 1,000 ngayon, no?
Oo nga, lumago na ulit.
Yes. But I remember the 115,000 was for a maximum of 800 voters per clustered precinct. So that would cover 4 to 5 established precincts. But anyway, lowering it down to a possible 400 to 500, much better yan. And then also with regards to naman sa APPs or the accessible polling places, ang gawin na lang sana ngayon ng Comelec through the election officer is that wag na nilang antayin na talagang magsabi yung ating mga senior citizens and PWDs ng kanilang kagustuhan to be included in ang APP. Kasi yun yung parang initial requirement eh.
Yeah,
gawin na siyang automatic.
They had to manifest their desire to use the APP. Pero ang problema kasi, kapag walang manifestation, di naman alam ng Comelec kung ilan ang balota, ilan ang taong i-assign, gaano kalaki yung lugar, kasi wala silang idea kung ilan ang sisipot.
Yes. Pero Madam Chair, yung sinasabi ko pong APP, meron po itong mga BCM ha. Iba pa ho yung EAPP na ini-institute natin on election day.
Yes.
Na, halimbawa, nilalagay natin sa library, sa karinderya,
Actually,
o sa
problema ng APP,
auditorium.
That's right.
Yeah,
Problema
iba
na ng
yung
APP,
yung
kaya
EAPP, sorry, Madam Chair, wala pong BCM yon. Yan po yung talagang iniipon, nilalagay sa folder or envelope. Tapos, inaakyat yan. In fact, kami pa rin ho yung tumutulong dyan eh. Naglalagay kami dyan ng mga 1 to 2 volunteers per AAPP. Ngayon yung APP po, meron po itong
So the suggestion
BCM.
is, Doctor, as mentioned earlier, the suggestion is to fold both into one APP. Yung EAP at saka yung APP, gawin na lang seniors and vulnerable sector na mas maayos, hindi ganong makeshift. At hanggat maaari, yung VCM, lalagyan. Kasi nga yung APP, naiinis yung mga tao, walang VCM. Tapos sabi nila, at least priority daw sila pag EAP or dun sa presinto. Samantalang sa APP, sabay-sabay daw yung seniors, buntis, PWD, labo-labo daw. So sinasabi ko nga, total hindi naman nagagampanan ng LGU at ng Comelec yung APP. Abay, ipagkaisa na lang natin para isang buong lugar na ilalagay doon na malapit na sa presinto.
Yes, opo. And then also with the other suggestion of Senator Villar with regards to the using other areas for as voting centers, okay rin po kami diyan, lalo na with the pandemic situation. Mas maganda talaga yung yung much open bigger area. And then with regards naman doon sa OAB, talagang we really need to improve that with regards to the participation, kasi talagang ang laki ng gastos natin and yet napakakonti talaga ng voters turnout. Ngayon with regards naman doon sa digital signatures, talagang pinag-uusapan namin po talaga ito ng husto sa Comelec Advisory Council. And talagang let me assure you, in addition to the assurance already from the 3 offices, na talagang in-assure din kami sa CAC na talagang this will be instituted in the 2022 elections. And then with regards naman doon sa voters receipt that will be transmitted to transparency server, that is also very good kasi in addition to the transparency. Pero let me assure also na even in a COVID situation, we will still conduct the unofficial parallel count na ginagawa namin since 2010 elections, nung nag-start tayo ng automated. So meron pa rin ho tayo niyan. And the office of Senator Amy could attest to that kasi lagi tayo nagpapadala ng representative since 2010 hanggang 2019. Opo, so meron pa rin ho kami niyan.
Makulit kami.
Yes, opo, pero okay lang po 'yon. Tsaka inaalagaan namin yung mga ano nyo, yung mga representatives nyo, pinapakain po namin sila talaga ng maayos. Oo, they will attest to that. And then with regards to the BARM electoral code, I hope and pray na yung ating pong BTA would really fast track para sa gayon this will be in time for the elections there, including the parliamentary elections. But be that as it may, we will leave the wisdom of the Congress kung in consultation with the BARM people kung what would really be the best, no? And then lastly, let me assure also the
Ay, mukhang naghang. Sorry. Okay. May last yata
of
yung
our elections
ayun.
next year. Ilan po, maraming salamat.
Thank you, Dr. Serrano. At maraming salamat sa tulong ng PPCRV. We'd like to call on the Philippine Medical Association. Huling hirit na po.
Yes po. We started with health and we're ending with health po.
Dapat lamang, dapat lamang. Full
Opo.
circle. Ang
Yes,
hunot-dulo
and
ng lahat.
opo. In behalf of our President, Dr. Atienza, and our Vice President, Dr. Tino, we have in our organization experienced 2 successful hybrid type of elections already. And we have in the PMA focused on following minimum health standards before and during elections. So now we are also highly recommending the focus of health before and during the 2022 elections. In this light, our members through our component societies are enjoined to promote and cooperate with DOH and IATF protocols from the lowest tier of their local health and local health units. And we will always be with you in relevant health information campaigns throughout this period. We will submit specific suggestions following this meeting, Ma'am Chair, and thank you po.
Yes, thank you very much. And to all of you, thank you very much for your participation and your valuable input. If there is anything more that you might add, or you suddenly have divine inspiration for solutions to all these problems, certainly we will welcome them in the committee, and you can text me personally. Maraming salamat. At ngayon, bubunuin natin yung budget. Director Elnas, bubunuin na rin natin ang DBM para magbigay sila ng kaunti. Hindi naglalayo si Professor sa kanyang 10 billion bad news. Tignan natin kung anong magagawa. Pero tulad nga ng sinabi, hindi nga panahon na magkuripot kahit Ilocano ako dahil napakahalaga ng eleksyon sa buhay ng ating demokrasya at republika. With that, I thank you all, and we suspend once more this hearing for your Committee on Electoral Reforms and People's Participation. Maraming salamat. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Happy lunch na virtual lang.